130 years ago, my great-great-grandfather bought a piece of land in southwest Arkansas. 20 years prior, he'd been a teenager working on a farm. On a particular day, he was out plowing with a mule when a man rode by and told him that slavery was over. Seizing this opportunity, my great-great-granddaddy looked at the mule and told the mule, "You go your way, and I'll go mine." He was free. They both were. His first priority was to locate his parents from whom he'd been stolen away. He spent a decade searching, but he never found them. So when he bought this land, I suspect he had in mind some of the same things for his young family that so many of us want for ours: a safe, stable place to call home. And that is exactly what he got. His daughter, his granddaughter, his great-granddaughter, my mom, were just a few of his many descendants who were born on the family land. In fact, I'm the first in that lineage who has not lived on the family land, though I've visited many times. For more than 100 years, my family has lived on the land, co-owned the land, worked on the land, been buried on the land, and paid taxes on the land. But today, with urbanization, an Arkansas phenomenon as well as a global one, everyone has moved away from this beautiful, bucolic place our parents called home. A few years ago, after talking with some relatives, I decided to try to make our family land, already a sentimental treasure, into an economic asset for our family and for the larger community, just as it had been in the past. First, we would locate all the relatives. Then, we would talk and agree upon a plan to develop and manage the property. Then, the community would reap the benefits of higher property taxes, and we would reap the benefits that come from productive property management. We started gathering names and filling in the younger generations on the family tree and found some relatives who didn't even know about the land. We gathered addresses and found cousins all over the United States. I was so excited about our progress towards reviving this land of my maternal ancestors and eagerly shared our progress with my dad, who's an attorney. What he said stopped me cold. All the heirs to the land, all the descendants, had legal rights to receive the benefits of the land. We knew this, and were already casting a big net, collecting addresses, even thinking about a first family reunion. But here's what I did not know. All the heirs also had the right to claim the value of their interest. And after so many generations and so many children, if anyone asserted that claim, there would be one primary way to fulfill it: sell the land. That was the last thing we wanted. And so we were stuck. We could not fairly and productively manage the land without finding and contacting all the relatives. And we could not contact all the relatives without risking losing the land that held so much sentimental and historical value. Though my great-great-grandfather would not have believed it, it is a minor miracle that we've kept the land this long. He wanted the land to stay in the family because he always wanted his children to have a place to call home. And he had been told that if he died without a will, the land could never be sold. 4 generations later, I grew up believing the same thing, but it is a lie. Estate planning is critical, and as some of the first people to live on the land, the Caddo Indians, would confirm, land can and does change hands. And those transactions are not always fair, they are not always just. There were other reasons to be concerned. In 1935, there were 7 million farms in the United States. Today, that number is less than 2 million. And much of that decrease results from smaller parcels of land, like the one my family owns, being bought and consolidated into larger parcels. We also knew families whose land had been sold for far below market value and against the wishes of many of the family relatives. This just added to our feeling of helplessness. Given all these trends, how could we make progress? I'd like to tell you about another time I felt stuck, frustrated, and a bit helpless. I've been blessed with a wonderful community of friends over the years. We support each other through difficult times, celebrate each other's successes, inspire each other to take on new challenges, and hold each other accountable as we work towards our goals. But despite our generally positive, optimistic outlook, we sometimes get mired in discussing all the problems and challenges we see around us. Who were we to make a difference? We felt helpless. Thankfully, though, that feeling did not last. A few months prior, I'd been considering how to publicly share all the many ways one can promote positive social change. I didn't have the funding for a paper newsletter, and plus it's the digital age. And a website couldn't be updated as frequently as I needed. But then I saw my first blog. The format was perfect. And just like my great-great-granddaddy seized his opportunity, I seized mine. I asked myself the most important question for promoting social change. So, what can I do? I launched So What Can I Do? The public service weblog promoting ethics in action. Soon, I was blogging several days a week about everything from cord blood donation to cell phone donation, socially responsible investing to socially responsible jewelry, bioethics to biofuels, citizen science to citizen engagement, service through gardening to service through gaming. So what can I do? Requires one to claim agency. That is, to assert our inherent capacity to act, to get things done, to make a difference. Doing so banishes the feeling of helplessness because we know our actions matter. So how does one answer this most important question? I contend that there are 4 steps. The first step is to know your options. In order to write the blog, I had to regularly and frequently seek new opportunities to share. That meant reading and listening widely and closely for opportunities to serve. Sometimes readers sent suggestions for ideas that would have positive impact. Other times, readers sent requests, and I would search for a solution that would work for them, even if it didn't work for me. Writing about these opportunities to serve, these solutions, week after week, month after month, year after year, showed me and all the readers that there is no need to feel helpless. There is plenty we can do. But still, some did not act. Some had limited time. Others had limited money. Some refused to act unless everyone was in agreement on exactly what to do and how to do it. One told me that he was busy improving himself and he couldn't help anyone else until he was done. These comments bring me to the second step needed to answer this most important question: dismiss excuses. Given that inertia makes the status quo our default, excuses are easy to find. Maybe that relief organization is just a scam for money, or that initiative sounds good on paper, but it'll never work, or I'd help, but I don't want to work with my hands or with kids or on the other side of town. There are meaningful rebuttals to these and other excuses, many of which I wrote about on the blog. We cannot use flimsy excuses to relinquish our responsibility to act. We cannot claim ignorance of our ability to act. We cannot deny that our choices, our actions, matter. We cannot allow such excuses to prevent us from creating a world in which we all, everyone, can thrive. Yes, answering that question, so what can I do, takes effort. Yes, it takes discipline. Yes, it may even take us outside our comfort zone. Is it worth it? Yes, because it is just that effort, just that discipline, just that willingness to try something new that can move our communities and our world from where we are now to where we want to be. Acknowledging and applying our ability to act and act in service to others fulfills our responsibility to the world in which we live and the people with whom we share it. So, with plenty of options and no more excuses, my friends and I got to work. We started volunteering at a medical reclamation organization and made microloans around the world. I started donating blood every 2 months and writing my elected officials about critical issues. My mom became an adult literacy tutor and made cloth napkins to share with friends and family so we didn't have to use paper ones. We still use those napkins at every meal. A dear friend, who's a teacher, encouraged me to think beyond some of the short-term, low-touch efforts I was doing and consider volunteering with elementary students whose parents were incarcerated. It was a bit more than I thought I wanted at the time, but I trusted my friend, and she was right. We were living step 3, start small. To be clear, small is different for everyone, and it's different in every environment, in every situation, in every community. but it always means doing something new in a familiar context. For some, it may mean giving time to an organization to which one has only ever given money. For others, it may mean a personal lifestyle adjustment that better aligns one's choices with one's goals for positive change. It may mean volunteering skilled rather than unskilled labor to increase the impact of one's time and one's service. It can mean a career shift that allows one's professional life to make a more meaningful, immediate, and positive, lasting impact on the community and the world around us. Increasingly, it means speaking up rather than staying silent if a friend or acquaintance says, plans, or does something cruel. While no one can do everything, we all can do something, and we all should do something that acknowledges the many ways our choices, our actions, our decisions, even small ones, affect others. Something that honors the intricate web of humanity in which we all live. Something that celebrates the many opportunities we have to humbly seek justice and love generously. These small, manageable steps can lead to success and so build confidence for larger future efforts. And that is step 4. For it is not enough to simply ask the question once. We must routinely ask ourselves, so what can I do? And then do and do more. Show true grit, passionate perseverance, steadfastness of purpose to find more time to give, more talent to sow, more ways to serve. We all have limited time and limited resources, so we must think critically about how best to use them so that our lives have the most meaning possible. This was on my mind a while ago when I happened to learn about the Hour of Code, an international effort to introduce children and adults to computer science. I thought my young daughter and other children I knew would enjoy it, and I hoped some might even get turned on to computer science as a possible career. But I hadn't read about any local public Hour of Code sessions. How could these children participate? Well, after trying a few of the Hour of Code tutorials myself, I realized that I could organize an event. All I needed was a computer lab and some willing volunteers. Arkansas Baptist College generously offered space, and several of my friends generously offered a Saturday morning to guide students' coding experience. My husband designed the flyer, and we posted it at schools, libraries, community groups, churches, and on social media. And then we waited. I would have been thrilled to get a dozen participants. Instead, we got double that. 24 students participated. We were even more surprised that 13 parents who had initially planned to drop off their kids stayed and coded alongside them. We introduced 37 people to computer science, and it only happened because I asked myself, so what can I do? Buoyed by this first experience, we recently hosted an astronomy workshop and are now making plans to take the coding workshop on the road. While it is often more comfortable, more efficient, and frankly easier to join an existing effort, there are times when we must claim an entrepreneurial spirit and take the first steps towards progress. Not to do so risks stagnation or even decline. And given the serious, threatening challenges facing our communities and our world, meaningful progress is imperative. There is so much to do, and our world's problems will not solve themselves. And my family's land issue wasn't going to resolve itself either. We were still too nervous to talk to all the family about the land, so we kept paying taxes on it with no clear path towards productivity. A few states had legislation that would help, but Arkansas was not one of them. So I was on the phone with a friend talking about this, venting and getting more and more frustrated, when she said, at least you could get the act passed. The act is the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, balanced legislation that levels the playing field and gives families a fighting chance to keep their land if they want it and get fair market value for it if they don't. It offers heirs who want to keep their land first option to buy out heirs who want to sell their interest. It requires an appraisal so that fair market value of the property is known and can be sought in the event of a sale. It requires notice to family before a sale, and if that sale progresses, it requires a real estate professional to market the property. These are just the kinds of protections families like mine needed in order to facilitate productive property management. Just what we needed to make heir property a family as well as a community asset. But I'm not an attorney. I'm not a legislator. I'm not a lobbyist. I'd never even done formal policy work. Who was I to try to change state law? Here was a fine opportunity to take step 4, do and do more. Do more, even if it's a really big job. Do more, even if you have to learn new information in a new field. Do more, even if others think you can't. Do more, even if it's a bit scary. Do more when what you are doing simply needs to be done because you understand the positive net impact that will result. It was the fall of 2013, and Arkansas's next legislative session would be in early 2015. I talked with my relatives, family about it, and then launched a statewide grassroots campaign to get this legislation passed in Arkansas. I spoke with local and national leaders on this issue and studied related work in Arkansas and in other states. Then, I set up a website, created a media campaign, sought endorsements, spoke at family reunions, community gatherings, and other events, connected with those promoting this legislation in other states, and educated myself and others about this important issue. While heir property represents a very small portion of all the land in Arkansas and in other states, it means an awful lot to those of us who own it. The Heir Property Act is balanced legislation, and so it has been endorsed widely nationally. In Arkansas, we were very pleased that 2 state bar associations endorsed it as well. And so, in early 2015, the Arkansas General Assembly made the Heir Property Act Arkansas law. We are thrilled and so grateful that to all those who supported, endorsed, sponsored, and lobbied for this important legislation that is making a meaningful, lasting, and positive difference for Arkansas families and Arkansas communities. With these protections, my family is now working together to unlock the value of our land, both for ourselves and our descendants, and for the larger community. This is the power in asking ourselves, so what can I do? This is the power in claiming agency and using it for good. We can do so much more than might seem possible if we know our options, dismiss excuses, start small, and then do and do more. These 4 steps, this power, and all the challenges and problems we face in our communities and in our world should inspire each of us to ask the most important question for promoting social change. So what can I do? And then put the answer into action. Thank you. Thank you.
So I was really interested in what you were saying about all of the little programs that you got involved with. And you and I had a chance yesterday to talk a little bit about micro-lending and some of these types of programs. And I think that's such a terrific philosophy to just start small because, and really the theme of this event is little rocks create avalanches, so I think it's perfect. So can you talk to us a little about any particular outcomes that you've seen in the community through some of those small actions and how they've built into bigger outcomes?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of interest in this. So probably my favorite small example is when we did the computing workshop, the computer coding workshop. A lot of the kids, again, maybe hadn't done that before, and so it's really kind of exciting. The tutorials that are designed by the Hour of Code are really engaging, particularly to young people. And I remember there was one little boy who walked out and was like, I can't wait to do this. I'm going to do this all day when I get back home. And that was wonderful. And what was so special about it was that this was one of the kids whose parents had stayed and coded with them, that the parent was able to do that with them. And so it really creates a 2-generation approach that is really sustainable. It's one thing if the kid's doing it all by themselves at their home, but it's another thing if the parents also engaged in doing that alongside them. So that's been really, really inspiring. We had some similar kinds of things with the astronomy workshop and some other things we're doing as well.
I think it's really easy for individuals to sort of drive ourselves into a rut by specializing and getting really focused on this is the thing that I'm good at. What kind of techniques did you use? What kind of obstacles did you face or challenges did you face? Because it sounds like you've really found it within yourself to say, you know what, this is a thing that needs to get done, and maybe it's not within my particular wheelhouse or skill set, but I'm going to go find a way to do that anyway. So what were some of the challenges that you faced personally in doing that, and what were some channels that you used to overcome that personally and to develop those new skills?
So I think the two major things I think are to recognize that we all have skills that are transferable. And so just because you may have skills in one area, it can be easily defined. My background, my PhD is in genetics, so I mean I could certainly push fruit flies around all day, and I love that, and it's a lot of fun. But it also gives me good analytical skills, and it helps me understand assumptions, and I can use those skill sets in any environment. So I think that's the first thing, to recognize that those skill sets are transferable. The other really key thing is that there are so many people around. I mean, I think when I was writing this, I realized, you know, I was talking, but there were so many people who influenced and supported all the work that I was talking about. And you just have to rely on those folks who have been doing this work and who are experts in it, who know it, to help sort of guide that work forward. So really acknowledging other people as well.
So going back to the original issue, the question of your family's land, you mentioned in your talk that you had gone around and spoken to different organizations, and particularly I picked up on family reunions. I assume those weren't all your family reunions,
No,
those were other family reunions. So what was the incident rate that you discovered? Did you have anyone else come to you and say, you know what, we dealt with that exact same issue?
Oh, tons.
So can you elaborate on
Absolutely.
that a little bit, some stories maybe that came out of that?
Sure. So it was, I mean, growing up, this was, as you can probably tell, this is a family lore, and so you always hear about this, and we go to visit the land, have pictures of myself on the cows and the tractors and the land. And so, you know, it was part of our family history, and you sort of take it for granted that that's your family. And I hadn't really talked about it with a lot of folks outside. It wasn't something that came up. But when I realized that this particular piece of legislation would have impact on our family, I figured, well, you know, in other states were passing it, probably had broader impact as well. And as I started launching this grassroots campaign and getting people signed up to our email list and that kind of thing, we found huge numbers of people all over our state, urban environments, rural environments, all over our state, who have these same kinds of issues. There's a lot of misinformation, and I think I and others have really worked to try to correct that misinformation. And I think, again, this legislation is pretty balanced legislation, so it still gives people the opportunities to sell their interests or do what they need to do, what they want to do with their land, but it allows families a fighting chance to keep it. And I think people have been very, very receptive to that, again, all over our state because of the potential positive impact it has.
So given that experience and getting involved in the legislative processes you have you considered putting aside fruit flies and running for office? Is that maybe the next thing that you're going to tackle?
I don't know. I've kind of put aside fruit flies already. We'll see. We'll see. I very much believe in the public service and the ability to work for the right and the good and work in service to others, because I understand it's important not just for the people that you're working with, but for ourselves. It's what makes a community and a place stronger for all of us to live.
Responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see. We'll see what's next.
We're so proud that
you were
in Little Rock.
Thank you
so much.